Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn the second topic of the first lesson, the French Revolution, history of class 9, and the name of the topic is the outbreak of the revolution. So let us study from the beginning. So here we came to know about King Louis XVI. He had to increase the taxes for the reasons that we have already learned in the previous videos and sections. So let's see about how he decided to raise the taxes. So here are some important dates and years and events in a blue box in the right side of a page, and you can understand this later on. You can remember them for your examination. So now let us concentrate on the outbreak of the revolution. In France of the old regime, the monarch or the king did not have the power to impose the taxes according to his will alone. So he was the king does not mean that he could raise the taxes. Rather, he had to call a meeting of the Estates General. It was a political body and they would pass the proposals for the new taxes. So the Estates General was a political body within this government, and the three states sent their representatives and they had votes. However, the monarch alone could decide when he has to call the meeting of this Estates General, this political body. And last time it was done was in the year 1614, and it was a long time back, like almost 100 and more than 100 years ago. On 5th May 1789, Louis XVI called together an 1789 Louis XVI called together an assembly of the States General to pass the proposals for the new taxes. A resplendent means an attractive and very splendid hall in Versailles was prepared to host, or all the delegates will be sitting there. The first and the second state sent 300 representatives each, and total 600, and they were seated in a row facing each other. You can see here how it is drawn, and this is how they were sitting against each other on two sides, while the 600 members of the third state had to stand at the back, means they were not allowed to sit also, but they were more in number, 600. So altogether there will be 1200 members of the total representatives, and this is how they used to stand at the back of the first state and the second state, behind the first state and the second state. Now the third state was represented by more of its prosperous and educated members. As I told you about the middle class, the lawyers, the school teachers and the businessmen, merchants, etc., and the peasants and the artisans and women were denied entry to the assembly. Why? Because like they were uneducated and they were told they cannot come inside. However, their grievances and complaints and demands were listed in about 40,000 letters, and the representatives had brought with them, although they could not bring their fellow peasants and artisans and women with them. So voting in the Estates General in the past had been conducted according to the principle or law that each state had one vote. That means only 3 votes. And every time they used to win, the first state and the second state. Why? Because the clergy had one vote, and the nobility had one vote, and the third state had one vote. So 1, 1 and 1. So definitely clergy and nobility would always be together, and third would always lose. So that is why this time too Louis XVI was determined to continue the same practice. But unfortunately the members of the third state demanded that voting should now be conducted by the assembly as a whole, where each member, that means 1200 members would put one vote each. So this was one of the democratic principles put forward by the philosophers like Rousseau in his book The Social Contract. So when the king was surprised and he heard this system, so he said it cannot be done. The king rejected this proposal. At the time, the members of the third state who had come for voting decided to go out, walked out of the assembly in protest, and they said we will not participate in the voting of the Estates General. And this is how this clergy and nobility were like they were left out, and the third state went out, and the decision was not taken how to increase the taxes. So it was a great change, and now we come to know the representatives of the third state viewed themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. So the third state was, although comprised of the weak people in comparison to the clergy and the nobility, but still they viewed themselves that they are the spokesman or the people who will say the real voice of France. And on 20 June 1789 they assembled in the hall of an indoor tennis court where the people used to go for playing tennis in the grounds of Versailles, and they declared themselves that we are a national assembly, we are a group, and we are the assembly of the whole nation, and swore and took promise that not to disperse or go away, break the association till they had drafted a constitution for France that would limit or stop the powers of the monarch, that is King Louis XVI. And the leaders who came forward were Mirabeau and Abbassides, and Abbassides and Mirabeau were the main people who led this movement. Mirabeau was actually born in a noble family, but however he was convinced of the need to do away or remove the society of feudal privileges. So he was a person who brought out a journal or a magazine and delivered powerful speeches to the crowds assembled at Versailles. And this is the picture of the famous National Assembly, the famous Chinese court, you can see here, and all the people came out, and it is made by Jacques Louis David, and it is intended to be the assembly, National Assembly. And Abbassides was originally a priest. Actually, he belonged to the first state, that is clergy, and he also wrote an influential pamphlet called What is the Third State? So he defined that what is actually the third state. So when the National Assembly was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, writing a new constitution, the whole France, the rest of the country France, seethed or burned with turmoil, and there was a lot of trouble. Why? Because a suffering was going on in the countryside, because a severe winter was there, and there was a very bad harvest, no production of crops, and the price of the bread rose high. There was no food, and whatever food was available, the price was very high. Often bakers also, the people who used to sell bread, exploited the situation and hoarded and kept the supplies of bread until the price will go high. After spending long hours in long queues at the bakery, the crowds of the angry women sometimes stormed into shops and decided that they would take the bread by themselves. And this is the anger of the common people, because this is the anger of the hunger. The hungry people got very angry because they did not have any food. At that time, the king ordered troops to move into Paris in order to control the situation. And this is what we got in the first page when we started the chapter, the storming of the Bastille. On 14 July 1789, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. Thank you.